Do you ever feel like there's something missing from your D&D game? Well, I might know where you can find it. A good dungeon master is always looking for new ways to increase the immersion and the excitement of their players, but what if we've all been looking in the wrong place? What if the new ideas and techniques we're seeking to make our D&D games better aren't actually new at all? The majority of people playing Dungeons and Dragons today started in the era of 5th edition. And if you fall in love with this hobby, and you found this video, so I bet that describes you, one day you might wonder if there's anything worth looking at from all the versions of the game that came before. And take that first step or two down the rabbit hole, and you'll quickly learn there's more than 4 versions of this game before 5e. And if you go a little bit deeper, you are bound to stumble upon the OSR. The old school renaissance or old school revival is much more than just a nostalgia fueled movement to recapture the innocence of the pre internet era. It's a broad community of perspectives exploring the roots of TTRPGs to bring more creativity, imagination, challenge, and ingenuity into today's games. Now, the main way the OSR achieves this is by using rules that are much simpler and place a lighter load on the dungeon master and the players alike. Sometimes that's by running an adaptation of a classic like Wally DM did for us over at the Game Masters Roundtable recently, running an extension of the adventure from the original Red Box, which is older than I am. We had a blast, and as far as we can tell, that's the only BECME actual play anyone is doing right now, so check it out if you want a taste of this style of play. More often, people run cleaned up versions of the old rules, like old school essentials, which I've been using in my home game to run Dolmenwood for the last few months. There are many systems with vocal fan bases, and the really beautiful thing about all of this is that you can mix and match them very easily to create a style that suits your table. In the OSR, you are often encouraged, almost expected, to experiment and adapt and customize your game to keep things fresh and fun and interesting.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna go build my own theme park with blackjack and hookers. In fact, forget the park.
But what gets talked about a lot less often is how you can take OSR principles into a quote-unquote modern game like Pathfinder or the latest editions of Dungeons and Dragons. Even without changing the rule set you are running at your table, exploring the old school style can give you a ton of ideas to inject into your game. In this video, I'm going to lay out a veritable buffet of OSR ideas so you can take a little or a lot of anything that looks good to you and bring it back to your table for a taste test and come back for more of what you like while leaving what you don't. Does that sound good? Great. By the way, hey everybody, I'm Ryan Doyle, and welcome to the Verdigris Table, where we don't espouse the idea of one true way to play the game, but draw ideas and inspiration from many different places to have the most fun and tell the best stories with the friends and the families we have gathered around our table. Lately, I've been getting some inspiration from Into the AM, who sent me a couple shirts that were so awesome, I went and bought myself some more of them. Check out the link below for beautiful graphic tees that will elevate your game night or your day-to-day wardrobe. Use the code Verdigris to let them know I sent you, and that will help this channel and save you some money in the process. So it's a win-win. Plus, come on, these things are awesome. Okay, maybe the biggest distinction that sets an old school style apart from the last few editions of D&D is the focus on player skill rather than character skill. In a 5e game, let's say the party opens a door and the dungeon master describes an ornately carved desk and a plush carpet and shelves overflowing with books. What happens next?
Active perception check. It's a natural 20. Let's fucking go.
Or maybe a player goes, perception check. No, the druid should do it. They have a better wisdom score. And can I help and give them advantage? Now that's not wrong, but it's not exactly immersive. Plus, it's the character sheet and the dice determining the outcome here. Maybe you get a 20 and are disappointed. You wasted a crit on a room that doesn't have much of interest inside. Or maybe you roll low and now the DM can't really give you any information about what's going on in here. And now the other players want to make a check too. And now the game is just keep rolling until someone gets a big enough number. And, well, that's not a recipe for riveting gameplay, at least not for me. In the same situation with an old school approach, when the Dungeon Master describes this study and a player wants to check it out, the DM asks them how their character is going about that. If they are examining the bookshelves for a mechanism that opens a secret door, if one's there, they simply find it. No need to give the dice a chance to say no. But while they're examining that bookcase, they won't find the drawer in the desk with the false bottom hiding a secret compartment. So maybe another character checks out the desk, while a third is clever enough to move the rug aside and see if there's anything interesting underneath there. Now more players are involved and they are interacting with the world, not the rules.
We need emotional content.
This is one of my favorite parts of the old school approach, so I'm going to say it again. We want to get the players interacting with the world, not the rules. I love a good crunchy game with deep tactics and character building, but sometimes that stuff can stand in the way of immersion, big time. I once put a puzzle in front of the party and someone asked, what do they have to roll to solve it? And I almost lost it.
We can't have anyone freak out there, okay? We've got to keep our composure.
I don't want the players looking for the right button to push on their character sheet. I want them to inhabit the role of their character and engage with the world that we're building together. This has been described, perhaps unkindly, as roleplay versus roleplay. ROLE versus ROLL. Look, I like making good characters, and there's a whole ecosystem of optimization out there that I actually enjoy, at least the parts of it that aren't trying to break the game by exploiting some willful misinterpretation of the rules, as if we were interacting with a machine and not participating in a collaborative, creative effort with a group of other human beings.
Heard, Chef.
The rules are there to allow us to engage with the world our characters are exploring. When we focus on the rules too much, we can lose sight of the best part of TTRPGs.
It is like a finger pointing away to the moon. Don't concentrate on the finger or you will miss all that heavenly glory.
There's an expression that gets repeated a lot in OSR circles that I think captures this whole philosophy very well. The answer is not on your character sheet. Now, like anything else that can fit on a bumper sticker, we can find exceptions to this statement, of course, but what I like is how it encourages everyone to engage with the game at a deeper level. The focus is less on the choices you made while creating your character and more on what your character decides to do in the moment, based on what's going on around them. So often you'll see a player looking at their character sheet in front of them or, scrolling around on D&D Beyond at the expense of being in the moment and connecting with the scenario their character is in. Now, I do love when the players are, scouring their inventories or looking at overlooked abilities for a creative solution to a problem under pressure. But sometimes when the tensions are high, it's worth saying, hey, turn your character sheet over, minimize the tab for a second, and tell me what your character would try to do in this situation. Imagine running a whole session like that. Kind of sounds incredible.
See that? Yeah, that's the way to do it.
That's old school.
Yeah? No school like the old school.
When we bring some of this old school approach to our D&D game, we encourage players to start approaching things more creatively. And often, this means getting them to interact with what's going on around them. We're talking about more focus on exploration. Now, for me, this is the good stuff. I love it. 5e talks a lot about the 3 pillars of play: combat, social, and exploration, but it's incredibly lopsided towards combat, with the social aspects getting way less support, and exploration often getting left by the wayside. But we can fix that. This might look like a player not just pushing the perception check button, but describing how their character explores what's around them. Maybe they use a 10-foot pole to tap on the carpet and listen to hear whether there's a hollow sound revealing a trap door underneath it. This not only increases immersion, it also increases the possibilities for creativity and clever problem solving. Now that we're engaging with the environment more, maybe the players roll up this rug and put it to use somehow later. They could dig a pit trap, use the rug to hide it, or use a rope to suspend the rug, hang it up so they can duck behind it, use it for cover. Maybe they light it on fire as part of some elaborate plan. I don't know why they're going to do it, but if I had to bet, I say they end up lighting it on fire. You hear a lot less about this in OSR circles, but an old school style can also bolster the social side of the game as well. Reaction rolls and morale checks go a long way towards getting the players to develop a theory of mind for the NPCs and the monsters. Plus, in my experience, de-emphasizing the reliance on charisma-based skills leads to crafting arguments around what the intended audience is more likely to respond to. Instead of crafting an argument to convince the dungeon master, what we're saying here really falls under deception and not persuasion because that's what the paper says is a bigger number for me. And add to this the value of good information and the importance of having friends around because you can't do everything alone in an old school world. And the characters might even start treating the NPCs like real people.
You're crazy. You're crazy, man. You're crazy. I like you. But you're crazy.
A cornerstone of old school style D&D that helps to encourage the creativity and engagement with the world inside the game is an emphasis on resource management. Something like tracking rations might sound like the epitome of a boring game with more accounting than action, or it can lead to more tension, higher stakes, and the levels of creativity seen on Delicious and Dungeon. Sure, okay, everybody has dark vision, but that still means disadvantage on perception and a much greater likelihood of getting surprised. And honestly, wouldn't that mean at least some penalty on attack rolls? -1 or 2 is a small change to make the darkness scary again. And counting torches and lantern oil might sound dull, or it could be the embodiment of your ability to explore this alien environment of the mythical underworld, growing ever smaller. A constant reminder of the time you have down here burning away. Can you get lost in the minutia of calculating the weight of things and comparing it to carrying capacity? Sure, but do it right, and you're creating a way more immersive and tense experience where you are thinking about where your next meal is coming from because you ditched some rations to carry an extra set of crossbow bolts. Or how much of this treasure that we found can we actually carry out of here without being so weighed down we can't run or fight effectively? These are interesting problems to solve that can generate adventure and story in their own right. And while things like this so often get hand-waved in D&D today, in old school play, these are just some of the ways in which player choices matter.
You chose poorly.
The stakes often feel so low in your average D&D game because player characters quickly become ridiculously powerful. And hey, guess what? They put all the new class features up to a vote and, surprise, surprise, characters are going to be even stronger soon. Now, I'm not trying to yuck anybody's yum for wanting to feel like a superhero. I get it. I do. But power creep tipped the scales in the player's favor a long time ago, and Dungeons & Dragons has been stuck on easy mode for a while. And some of us prefer at least a little bit of a challenge. The focus on resource management helps us up this challenge and keeps the choices feeling significant, especially when you consider the ultimate resource for player characters to manage: hit points. For a lot of people, the defining feature of an old school style of play is higher lethality. Now, exactly how deadly the game is comes down to a lot of factors: the system, the scenario, the dungeon master, player choices. But in an old school style game, characters can actually die. And now I'm not talking about meat grinder fun houses, they can be fun sometimes. I'm just saying winning feels way less satisfying when it is impossible to lose. Real talk, players, come here. How do you think your character's story is going to end? Are you betting that they ride off into the sunset after achieving godlike powers at level 20? Okay, cool. I wish you luck with that and hope real world scheduling doesn't ever stop your game from going for years. Or, burnout from running an increasingly imbalanced game with less and less support doesn't lead your dungeon master to take a break or start a new campaign. I'm only half joking here. Please consider the value of going out in a blaze of glory, or, as an alternative, a series of tragic missteps. These are the characters that will be remembered, and probably the only ones that are going to see any kind of closure, while the rest hang out in limbo, mid-adventure, in some story that we're never going to return to. And I leave it to you to decide which is sadder.
You're my boy, Blue!
Now, I did say at the top of this one, you can pick and choose from these OSR elements to make your game better. And I didn't open with upping the lethality because I know that's going to sound not so appealing to a lot of people who just started out in this hobby over the last few years.
I guess you guys aren't ready for that yet.
And in a funny way, one of the most beginner aspects of old school D&D has now become advanced level play. Time is a flat circle. The point is we've got 50 years of D&D and a massive buffet of other TTRPGs that have grown up in the meantime. Explore the variety and don't just keep filling up your plate with the same thing all the time. By getting a taste of some of these old school elements, you might find something you like and make your game more immersive and engaging in the process. I definitely have. Up next, we're talking about one simple trick you can use to unlock just about all of the features we talked about in this video. Then, I'm going to walk you through a wonderful short adventure that has become one of my favorites that is available in both Old School Essentials and 5e versions. So it's a great way to kind of dip your toes into these old school waters. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss those. Until next time, be kind, have fun.